The North Devon coast, rugged, remote and beautiful. Here the wild landscape of Exmoor meets the Bristol Channel. The steep hills and deep valleys that give this area its unique character have also helped to keep it isolated and unspoiled. Even today, in the high-speed age of the motorcar, this is not an easy place to reach. In the days of horse-drawn traffic, it was very much harder, and only a few intrepid visitors came to enjoy the glorious scenery. With so many steep hills, the area became known as England's Little Switzerland. The only town in these parts is Lynton, perched high on the cliffs 400 feet above the sea, and looking down on its smaller twin, the fishing village of Lynmouth. To avoid the exhausting climb, the Victorians installed one of Britain's shortest and steepest commuter lines, the Cliff Railway, powered by nothing more than water and the force of gravity. It was built by the town's benefactor, the wealthy publisher Sir George Newnes. He also presented the locals with a magnificent town hall, but his vision extended far beyond the horizon. According to Sir George, what Lynton really needed, apart from another tea room, was a rail link to the outside world. Not everybody in Lynton agreed with him. Many preferred the isolation and didn't want to put their town on the railway map. But in 1898, Sir George got his way, and the Lynton and Barnstaple Railway Company opened for business. It connected with the main line at Barnstaple, but this was no ordinary branch line. It was unique. The rails were only 2 feet apart, less than half the standard gauge. Its trains looked like scale models to the passengers changing from the main line at Barnstaple. Ron Hill's grandfather worked on the station.
And when you get to Barnstaple, you go to Town Station and you get off the train there, and just over the other platform, there's a little train, and your grandfather with his uniform on waiting for you. It was my personal live steam model railway. I didn't need anything else. That was my life as a little boy, you know.
It may have been small, but it was certainly not a toy train. It could do almost everything its bigger relations could do, whatever its passengers might think.
Yes, you got off the train at Barnstaple Town Station. You've come from London or the Midlands or the north of England, and you get out of your train, and then across the other side of the platform is this funny little train. And you think, is that a serious railway? A serious train? I could sort of rest my elbows on it. But you got in because that's what you had to do, and you relaxed, and you realised, well, actually, it's quite a comfortable carriage, you know, it's quite a decent size, solidly built, perhaps it's all right. So you chunter off, and you go through the suburbs of Barnstaple, which are not perhaps the beauty spot of Devon, but gradually you leave Barnstaple behind you, you're trundling up the Yeo Valley, which, to start with, is fairly uninteresting. Suddenly you find yourself amongst the woods, and there's the sparkling River Yeo below you, and if you're lucky the sun comes out, and it really is another world.
And then you begin to get the feel of Exmoor, don't you? You can hear the engine going heavy beat on it. You can hear the echo coming back as it...
Climbing up around these incredibly sharp bends up onto the slopes of Exmoor, across this magnificent viaduct, 70 feet above the valley, which is quite an incredible engineering achievement. Up through the woods, climbing it for 8 miles at a gradient of 1 in 50, which I think is probably unique in England.
You can feel the engine working. If you were doing a steeplechase, it's the sort of thing you experience yourself. You've got to put an effort in because you're coming to an obstacle, and you put that extra effort in, and the engine, you can tell, it's just working a little bit harder, and then it reaches a point, and it seems to say, and take a breath.
The tough little tank engines were all named after local rivers: Tor, Yeo, Exe, Lou and Lynn. Like the Exmoor ponies, they became part of the landscape. The choice of a narrow gauge cut the cost of building the line by allowing sharper curves as the track twisted its way up the narrow valleys or clung to the steep hillsides.
It didn't go very fast, it chugged along, and it was just the atmosphere of it. The scenery was really beautiful, and even in those days I think I remember how beautiful it was. The valleys and the trees, and all the fascinating names that the porter would call out. Snapper Halt. It was never Snapper Halt.
Well, it was lovely. I mean, all the stations. I mean, it was slow, but who cared in them days? I mean, time didn't mean much, did it?
It's part of the way that the train was going slowly enough through the countryside that you could actually look out the window and enjoy it. You could see the deer scampering past. You could even lean out and pick up the flowers if you were feeling so inclined. And even the third-class carriage had an open section in the middle so that everybody could look out and get the full panoramic view of this glorious scenery.
That's where I was born, in North Devon. And that's what I know and understand. And being able to see it unfold like that without having to ride a bicycle or some stinking bus or whatever, it was like seeing something for the first time, I think, the wonderment.
You left the woods behind you and it's the heather and the gorse. And then you're riding on the top of Exmoor and then your first glimpse of the sea. And then you get to Lynton and you see the sign saying Lynton Lynmouth. You get out of the train and you say, where is it? Because you're still 700 feet above the sea and it's round the corner.
It certainly wasn't the most speedy or convenient service, but for 37 years the little trains chuffed their way slowly but safely to Lynton. Their whistles echoing among the hills became a familiar and friendly sound to the people of the remote farms and hamlets on the fringe of Exmoor.
Even in Lynton you heard it sometimes when the wind was in the right direction. We thought it was ours and very unique, and everybody loved it.
Well, everybody knew about the Killington Railway and everybody spoke about it, almost as a possession of theirs. Although I suppose they didn't ride on it often enough to make the necessary cash flow that it needed to keep it going.
The little train certainly gave their passengers a grandstand view of the lush Devon country scenery, but they took 90 minutes to travel the 19 miles from Barnstaple, and the third-class seats had no upholstery. As the roads improved and more comfortable motor buses began to penetrate this wild corner of the West Country, passengers began to desert the railway. In 1923, it was taken over by the Southern. Improvements were made and the locomotives were given a smart new green livery. But the decline continued. By the 1930s, the line was losing money at an alarming rate, and in 1935, the Southern reluctantly decided to abandon it.
When it was known that it was going to close, for me, it was almost like losing a loved one. That line was going to be there when I was old, and I bring my children and my grandchildren to it. And there's never any thought that it wouldn't be there sometime.
On the last day, the crowds turned out to say goodbye.
I remember being on the station when the last train went out. We were celebrating, there was a large crowd of us there, and a band and lots of activity going on. And we waved the train goodbye with tears in our eyes.
I was at Lynton Station the same night, and well, for us kids really, I mean, I was 8 years and 10 months old then, but it was, well, great fun. I mean, we didn't realise then that what a blow it would be to lose it.
It was a devastating blow. It nearly brings tears to my eyes now, quite honestly, when I think about it. It had been cared for and loved, I think.
I hated travelling on the buses. I was always travel sick, so I loved the train.
It belonged to us.
it's a case of use it or lose it, and unfortunately we lost it, didn't we?
The track was torn up. All but one of the engines went for scrap. The trucks and coaches were burned or sold off for use as sheds and summer houses. Nature moved in and reclaimed the empty trackbed. Soon almost all traces of the line had gone, but it was not forgotten. On the day after the railway closed, a wreath had been laid on the buffer stops at Barnstaple. It bore the inscription, "To Barnstaple and Lynton Railway, with regret and sorrow from a constant user and admirer. Perchance it is not dead, but sleepeth." As the years passed, the hope that the railway might be only sleeping remained alive. The spirit of the little train to Lynton lingered on among the hills and valleys and refused to leave its old haunts. As first-hand memories faded, a new generation of enthusiasts who never knew the railway resolved to rebuild what had been lost.
It was a legend in its own lifetime, it really was. It was a one-off, it was unique. And because it died young. It's the Marilyn Monroe factor. It died at 37, you know, and the legend has just gone on growing ever since.
It was spot on, perchance it only sleepeth. I've always looked at that and I think, I wonder, come the day, you know, would it ever?
Reawakening the Lynton and Barnstaple looked like an impossible task. But down in Cornwall, the 2.5-mile Launceston Steam Railway proved that it could be done. This 2-foot gauge line was built from scratch on the abandoned trackbed of another long-lost railway. It was created by just two individuals, Nigel and Kay Bowman.
Launceston Steam Railway is a small private company, very engineer-centred, and just getting on and doing it. And there's the other way, which is quite common in railway preservation, which is to set up a society of like-minded individuals, to try and keep them together, because they very often want to pull in different directions. They can't quite agree what their priorities are. They don't all quite have the same vision. But if they can pull together well enough, great things are achieved, and that's happening not very far from here, at Woody Bay Station on the old Lynton and Barnstaple line. Perchance it is not dead but sleepeth. And I think it's that little epitaph which has led volunteers on. It's kept them going, and it's been talked about for years and years and years. A friend and I looked at the possibility of doing something there. We decided it was too daunting, but nevertheless, the Lynton and Barnstaple Railway Association are making progress.
Perchance it is not dead, but sleepeth. That really has been the motto that's kept us going all this time ever since, and has inspired the revival that you see now.
At almost 1,000 feet, Woody Bay was the highest station on the line. When the railway closed, it was sold and became a private house.
When I started here, you looked down the line and it was just, you could see the track bed down there and it was just a wide open space. And then we laid the first third of a mile of track and you thought, oh my goodness me, this is getting good. We can now stand at the station, see the track disappearing into the distance.
Now lovingly restored to its original role, Woody Bay Station is the headquarters of the Lynton and Barnstaple Railway Trust. This non-profit making organisation is now rebuilding the railway. Track materials, wagons and locomotives have been gathered from all parts of the country for the construction work. Passenger services began in 2004, using modern coaches and ex-industrial locomotives from a variety of sources. But the preservationists have always dreamed of recreating the railway exactly as it used to be. Surviving wagon and coach bodies have been rescued and restored. The aim is to put everything back as accurately as possible.
Firstly, it's the history of the line and the fact that we are trying to recreate something here. Things have to change. Modern requirements do mean that you can't always do it exactly the same as it was back in 1935 or whenever. But on the other hand, those things are usually hidden from the public anyway. The thing looks very much like the original Lynton Barnstaple.
The magic ingredient that is helping to breathe new life into the railway is the power of steam.
Steam is something that brings the customers in. A lot of people are interested in steam, even down to young children, because they've not had the opportunity that I had when I was young. They've been left out. All they've got is a tin can with an engine in. Diesel is all right in its place, but steam is what brings people in.
It doesn't matter that somebody has to light a fire and put coal on and water in and so on. Once that's done, it's alive. It's ready. It's almost like a horse that's standing up, ready to do its job, putting it in the shafts, hook it up, and off you go, deliver the coal, take the hay from one place to another, and so on. It's evocative of life.
When it's hissing steam and there's wisps of steam coming out in different places, it really is a living thing. As it warms up, you can listen to it. It's making noises as the metal and things expand and the water expands. It's been sitting in here for a week as a dead thing, but now we've come along and putting fire in it, and it is bringing it to life.
Building and the platforms, even the gents' toilet is exactly the same. Inside the building, of course, they've adapted it to cafe and so on, but why not? But externally, you are looking at what it was when I was a child.
We're very fortunate actually is having this station here with the original station building. And what you can do is you can show before and afterwards photographs, and they look almost the same.
At Woody Bay, history comes to life. Here you can relive the Victorian dream and ride once more behind a steam locomotive on the reborn Lynton and Barnstaple Railway.
It conjures up something. It's not a replacement, but it gives you a flavour, I think. It isn't working exactly as it used to, obviously, but the flavour is there.
Building even a narrow gauge railway is a huge task, and definitely not for the faint-hearted. It shows what can be achieved when enough people are prepared to put in the effort. Most of the work is done for love, not for money. The railway builders are unpaid volunteers who give their time and their labour for free. Many travel hundreds of miles to work on the railway, bringing whatever skills they have and learning new ones as they play their part in making the dream of a reborn railway come true.
I start out from home sort of about 6:30 on a Sunday morning, and then you get home again about 8, 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. But it's been a good day, it's been an interesting day, and most times you go back home thinking, I've done something useful here.
Track laying began in 2002. The first major obstacle to be overcome was a missing bridge west of Woody Bay Station. But Nuttall's, the company that first built the line back in the Victorian age, was so impressed by the achievements of the volunteers that they agreed to replace the bridge at their own expense. Nuttall's needed to employ an army of labourers to build the line back in the 1890s. Today's enthusiasts are doing much the same job, but doing it for free. This track gang includes helpers from another like-minded preservation society on the Isle of Wight. The volunteer track builders come from all walks of life, but they work to the highest standards. Safety always comes first, and the operation depends on good organisation.
The first thing is to buy in the material, to buy in the sleepers, the rails, the fastenings and all the rest of it. And then, of course, although we've got the track bed, it's laying a bed of ballast down for us to lay the track on. But then, prior to this weekend's job, the sleepers had to be cut down to length, and then we got the plates to be put on, so we then have to drill the sleepers, then bolt the plates down to the exact gauge. So that has to be done for every sleeper right the way down the line. And then, of course, they've then got to be carried into position. All the rails have to be carried into position, ready for the gang to come along and then sort of pull the sleepers up onto the track bed and lay them out very carefully, and then carry the rails themselves down and actually put them onto the sleepers, and then come along with putting all the fastenings in.
4 inches!
It's heavy and exhausting work. Each length of track needs 2 rails and 15 sleepers. Each of these rails weighs more than 1/4 of a tonne. There are 292 rails and 2,190 sleepers to be laid for every mile of track. The costs are high, but the rewards can't be measured.
Well, you can stand at the end of the platform, look down the track, look down the valley and see right out over the Bristol Channel. I mean, here we are, 1,000 foot above sea level and within about 2 miles of the sea. It's the most amazing setting. One that I don't think hardly any other railway can provide.
By 2006, the track had reached Killington Lane, a mile from Woody Bay, where a temporary station was built.
We now run from one station to another station, and not just an out and back ride in the park. It's a good mile each way, superb scenery, sort of views across down to the sea that you just can't see from the road. And when you get to the other end, at Killington Lane, you are 900 feet above the sea, about a mile away, and when the sun shines you can see right across the Bristol Channel to Wales, and even when the sun doesn't shine, it must be one of the most superb locations of any station in the whole country.
I think a lot of people never thought that Lynton and Barnstaple could be put back together. It was viewed as a project impossible. It was viewed by the locals as being a gang of idiots who really were wasting their time. This wasn't going to happen. You can't do that. And now they can see that we can do that. The piece that we've got open is running perfectly well. It's a great attraction in the area, and the people who see it want to see more of it. And that isn't just visitors, but that's local residents as well. They want their railway back.
As the project gathered pace, local attitudes began to change. Perhaps these enthusiastic amateurs were right after all. Perhaps the railway really was not dead, but only sleeping, and could live again as a major tourist attraction, bringing in visitors and helping the local economy. But the railway's critics pointed to the lack of historical accuracy. Undersized coaches and industrial locomotives were fun to play with, but hardly did justice to the memory of the old Lynton and Barnstaple. Only 2 of its original coaches survived intact. One, in unrestored condition, is now on show at the National Railway Museum in York. The other, much modified, runs on the Festiniog Railway in North Wales. But from its earliest days, the Trust had collected fragments of other coaches that had survived as outbuildings dotted around North Devon, determined that one day it would recreate a train to be really proud of. After many years of frustration, the miracle was finally achieved in the unlikely setting of a World War II aircraft hangar in Essex.
Well, the important thing that's crucial to our ability to produce these coaches and restore them and build new parts and so on is to have someone who's able to understand the materials, the techniques, and have the craftsmanship to do it. We are very fortunate that we've got a team here who are doing that, and a major factor in all that is Tony Ely, who has been through the building industry, is a joiner, he's able to do this stuff, and extremely keen to get it right. If you talk to Tony, he would take you through the components that we've got in store, and almost like an industrial archaeologist, tell you which coach came off where, how this bit went together, what material was used, what paint was used where, and how it all fitted together. And that's essential in trying to recreate what we are. So that we've, as I said, we've got original pieces, but then the new parts are interchangeable. So we have new doors, which can swap with an old door. We've got old doors that have been restored using the same technique. We then build new doors.
I don't think you can get anything that's totally original. There must be something gone in it. Anything that's gone, you've got to replace. You can't, you've got to accept that. Other than that, when it's finished, it will look the piece.
Yes, and clearly it has been a quality product. The carriage we're sitting in, Coach 7, which is actually an original carriage built for the railway in 1898, beautifully restored by volunteers. And as you can see, no effort has been spared to get it really just right.
Third-class coach number 7 was followed by Coach 17, a brake composite with a guards van, third-class seating and magnificent first-class compartments, with plush upholstery for those prepared to pay a little more for a touch of luxury. Then came number 16, with another guards van and more third-class seating. An original Lynton and Barnstaple train in all its glory was finally back in service after almost 80 years.
The flavour is there, and it will be more so once they've got one of the replica engines there and a couple of coaches. Then it'll begin to have a stronger flavour.
And that part of the jigsaw was already taking shape. It all began in a garage down in Cornwall.
I always thought, the Lynton and Barnstaple didn't deserve to die so young, really, and it deserved to be resuscitated. And so I thought, well, what I might possibly be able to do is build a replica of one of the original engines. And there were two problems, really. One was money, which looked as if it was going to require a lot of that. And the other was some really good working drawings. And suddenly a friend of mine said, I've got the original drawings for Lou, which was the last engine built in 1925, and showed every detail right down to the brush for sweeping the footplate. All the spanners were drawn. So this was drawn in the Depression, in the 1920s, presumably to keep draftsmen in work. And even the tallow kettle and the oil cans, everything on the drawings, which was really an inspiration to build this thing. And I thought, well, I can get the frame plates profile cut. That's not too expensive, and you get a couple of tons of metal for your money, so it looks like something. And then I met Paul Lewin.
When I first spoke to him, he said to me that he was building a replica of a Lynton and Barnstaple engine in his garage in Cornwall, and I must admit that I thought I'd got a bit of a nutter on the telephone talking to me, but I went to see him and there were the frames of the locomotive set out in his shed. We're probably 75 to 80% of the way there in building this engine, but it just feels like a lifetime since we actually started doing it. So far it's taken something in the order of £150,000 worth of work and 10 years effort, and we hope that within the next 2 years we'll finish the job and get the engine in steam.
When the engine comes and I'm able to touch it and feel the warmth and smell the oil and the steam, that will be really something.
And in 2010, it happened. Since all the original Lynton locos were named after three-letter Devonshire rivers, this replica stuck to the tradition. Lyd is based on the Festiniog, but its spiritual home is North Devon, and it was only a matter of time before it was on a low loader and heading for Woody Bay. With it came the Festiniog's former Lynton and Barnstaple coach and a modern observation saloon. Waiting on the platform to welcome Lyd to Woody Bay was Ron Hill.
I've never ceased to love steam engines. The steam and the oil going together, and they seem to make something that's almost like the air you breathe. It's just part and parcel of me.
Lyd returned again in 2013, this time wearing the more familiar livery of Southern Railway green, and was paired with the Trust's first 2 genuine Lynton and Barnstaple coaches. The years fell away, and it was 1935 once again.
When I started in my own workshop, I quite honestly didn't know how it could possibly be finished. But I thought if I started it, perhaps a few other people would join in and it would become gradually more possible. Which, of course, I mean, the big leap forward was when I met up with Paul, who's such a dynamo and has all the skills that I don't have. And, of course, with the backing of the Festiniog Railway and the Festiniog Trust and Boston Lodge, and all the other people who've joined in, that's why, I mean, if I'd been working on my own, I don't think it would ever have been finished.
I think that what James and I both wanted all along was to share a Lynton and Barnstaple engine with other crews and other people so that they could experience what it was like to work on the footplate. We wanted to share James's ideas in engineering and in improvements in the engine, and we also wanted to foster that interest in the L&B. And different people do this in different ways. So some people may be building new bits of track bed and what have you. But the work that I think that James and I have done together has helped really lift the interest in the L&B, making a day like today possible. And I think this is a real good foundation stone for moving forward. So I think we have made our small contribution to ensuring the future of this railway.
Lyd has to justify the high cost of its construction by earning its living on the Festiniog Railway, but the Trust is well on the way to recreating another piece of Lynton history, the American-designed Baldwin locomotive Lynn.
The project to build Lynn arose because a few of us thought that we quite liked the Baldwin. One of our long-term members was actually sucked into the whole Lynton and Barnstaple movement because he found a picture of Lynn in a book on American railways. Given the funds over a fairly short period, that locomotive could follow in a fairly short period as well. But in the course of doing that, we've made sure that we haven't repeated the mistakes in the design in the first instance, so we've not just built a 19th century locomotive. It will look like Lynn, but it will have a number of fairly important technical advances.
Each new project brings the railway closer to becoming a faithful recreation of the past. But is putting back the clock really possible?
The railway can be put back together. It was made once, it can be made again. What man has made, man can make again. And as far as turning the clock back is concerned, we're not really turning the clock back. We are simply recreating, reconstructing things that shouldn't have gone in the first place, that do have an appeal, that do have a timeless appeal. And that's one thing about the steam locomotive. It has a timeless appeal. It is a very simple, yet beautiful, and it's subtly complex piece of equipment. And the same goes with the coaches. They are beautiful objects in themselves, beautifully put together, wonderfully designed, excellent ride, and we are reconstructing that, but I certainly wouldn't say we're turning the clock back. In fact, in certain parts of North Devon, the clock hasn't gone anywhere anyway.
And on a rainy day, with low clouds shrouding the Exmoor Hills, it's as if the clock really has stopped. Before its untimely death, this railway was far more than just a plaything for the summer visitors. It was an all-year-round, all-weather lifeline for the people of Lynton.
There are only a few months of the year where we don't run anything at all, and so it's a service that goes all the way through the year, and the original railway did exactly that. It had to cope with everything, from blazing sunshine to snowdrifts that actually close the line from time to time. So yes, it's very real.
At present, the aim is to relay the track through Paracombe as far as Blackmore Gate, where a new station and locomotive depot will be built. That would give visitors a round trip of 14 miles through some of North Devon's finest scenery.
That I'm really keen to see. I don't know how near it is. It's all a question of finance, I suppose, at the end of the day.
It's a major undertaking, but with the first section of track reopened and historically accurate coaches in operation, the Trust is confident it can be achieved.
They've done enough to show what could be possible, because 3/4 of a mile is it's like an animal that's caged. You're not seeing the real thing. But what we've now got here is, with the engine and the carriages, people can actually see it and say, yes, that could be. So I think we're at the point of inspiration, where more people can be inspired and can see what could be possible. And there is a heck of a lot to do yet, because what this railway needs to do now is it needs to become a 7 or 8 mile railway with a reasonably intense service and a really good product offering, so that it can be a true tourist attraction. And if it can achieve that, then it can have sustainability. And I think that's most important.
We've reached the point where asking for donations and selling tickets and having raffle sales isn't going to get us any further. We're going to have to get serious money from grant-giving authorities. You've got to prove yourself, haven't you, before people give out public money, and quite rightly too, because it is public money, it's my money as a taxpayer. So you have to have a track record before you can attract that sort of money. And this is what we have now done. We've shown that we are serious, we're businesslike, we're professional, we're commercial, we know what we do.
There's a feeling that we've been working uphill for years, but we're sort of just gone over the summit now, and we've broken the back of the problem. There's a lot of hard work left to do, but this railway can come back to life, and I'm sure it will come back to life.
I love going to Woody Bay, and it takes me right back to my boyhood. That's where my memories come from, really. Not many of us left now, I suppose, who could say they spent their boyhood actually involved with the Lynton Railway. It translates me back into my childhood.
Several times this weekend I've had to pinch myself. I've had that sort of tingling feeling in the skin as well. You're somehow reliving the past. The scenes are just as they were in the past. You look at the old photographs, old films, and it's there. It's recreated. It's come alive again. It's brilliant.
But fortunately, people with some vision kept something of what people like me knew as a going concern. It's part of our daily lives.
It was a perfect little railway in a beautiful part of England, and I suppose its uniqueness, it's not an amalgam of an industrial railway turned into a passenger railway. It is a beautifully presented passenger railway running through beautiful countryside.
Rebuilding the entire 19-mile line may be impossible, but the enthusiasts are determined to try. It involves years of delicate negotiations with landowners before the costly business of buying back the trackbed and relaying the rails can even begin. But the process is happening. The Trust owns several stretches of the former route, including Chelfham Station and the impressive Chelfham Viaduct, the biggest structure on the line, now restored to carry trains once more. What began as an impossible dream scribbled on a card in 1935 is becoming a firmly established fact. Fantasy is being replaced by down-to-earth reality.
This is a railway that should never have disappeared, and we know full well that we can put it back together. If people say it can't be done, then it's quite clear that that has acted as a bit of a spur to say, yes, we can do it. We know we can do it. We have already done a fair part of it, and it's moving on very well. No such thing as can't. No such word.
We've got a station here. There's the old station hotel over there, now the Moorlands Hotel. And nowhere around have you got any modern housing development or supermarket or anything like that. It is still the original.
I think this is the right way to experience the past and also to build this for the future. You can ride in this and you can relive the past. You can see it as it was and as it should be.
Most of the people who come to the railway are not enthusiasts. Most of the people who come to the railway are ordinary families, and they've come for a day out. But beyond that, it does, I think, really help the local economy, because people who come here to see the railway, they've got to stay somewhere, they go to the shops, they go out for meals. All that is good news for an economy which doesn't have a lot else to offer. And this is one of the few all-weather attractions. For those days when you don't want to go on the beach, come on the trains. And people do.
In a fast-changing world, steam trains have never been so popular. They are a reminder of a safer and saner way of travelling, before we learned to live with juggernauts and contraflows, tailbacks and gridlock, when people had time to look at the view, when road rage and motorway madness were not part of the language, the only way to go was by steam train. Woody Bay Station is a gateway into that world.
The Lynton Railway no longer sleepeth. It's risen like the phoenix. There's something there, and long may it continue. Magic, sheer magic.